Before everything spiraled into chaos, I honestly thought my sister and I were close. We weren't best friends, the kind of sisters who share clothes and whisper secrets late at night, but we grew up side by side, eating at the same dinner table, going to the same schools, and living under the same roof. She was the older one, only 2 years ahead of me, and because of that, she always carried herself like she knew more, deserved more, and was entitled to be in the spotlight. Our parents raised us in a pretty ordinary household. Dad worked long hours, Mom managed the house, and they both expected us to push ourselves in school. From the outside, we were just another middle-class family with 2 daughters who should have been allies. But under the surface, competition simmered. If I got an A on a math exam, my sister would complain that the teacher must have liked me better. If I landed a solo in the school choir, she'd say the judges were biased. It didn't matter what I did. Every achievement of mine was, in her eyes, proof that someone was against her. Still, I tried to see the best in her. She had this outgoing charm that people instantly noticed, while I was more of a slow-burn personality. I loved to read, to work hard behind the scenes, to prove myself through effort and consistency rather than theatrics. My dream, even back then, was to build something of my own, maybe a career in writing or creating online content that inspired people. I wasn't chasing fame for fame's sake. I just wanted to be respected for who I was and for the value I could bring to others. But with my sister, it always felt like I was running uphill. Every time I tried to shine in my own lane, she shifted into mine, determined to prove she was better. Family gatherings turned into subtle competitions. Who looked prettier in a new dress? Who got more praise from relatives? Who could tell the funniest story? Even when I wasn't competing, she made it a battle. The sad part? My parents didn't always notice. To them, it just seemed like normal sibling rivalry, the kind everyone goes through. But to me, it felt different. It wasn't harmless teasing. It was constant undermining. She wasn't satisfied until I was put in my place. Looking back, maybe I should have realized the warning signs earlier. Maybe I should have seen that her envy wasn't something small that would fade with age. Instead, it was growing, waiting for the perfect moment to explode. At the time, though, I brushed it off. I told myself she'd mature, that we'd eventually learn how to support each other instead of competing. I couldn't have been more wrong. Because the truth is, while I was busy focusing on my goals and trying to build a reputation based on honesty and hard work, my sister was quietly planning how to tear it all down. The first cracks in my reputation didn't come from strangers. They came from my own sister. At first, it started small, so subtle that I almost didn't catch it. She would make offhand comments in front of friends or family, little jabs disguised as jokes. If someone complimented me on how focused I was in school, she'd laugh and say, "Yeah, but she only studies because she has no social life." Everyone would chuckle, and I'd force a smile, but inside I felt the sting. Then the comments grew sharper. At a family dinner, when I talked about applying for an internship, she smirked and said, "I doubt they'll hire her. She doesn't really have people skills." The worst part? My parents didn't correct her. They just brushed it off as sibling banter. But the seed of doubt was planted, and I could feel the way relatives began looking at me differently. What hurt the most wasn't just the words, but how she twisted the truth to make me look bad. She knew exactly where my insecurities were and pressed on them like fresh bruises. When I posted a photo on social media celebrating a small achievement, she reshared it with a sarcastic caption. Imagine bragging about something so minor. Her friends chimed in with laughing emojis, and suddenly my proud moment felt cheap and embarrassing. It escalated quickly. Rumors began to swirl in our school and among our extended family. Somehow stories spread that I cheated on a test, that I was fake with my friends, that I was desperate for attention online. I never knew where these lies originated, but deep down I already suspected. My sister was feeding them. She never said it outright, but her sly comments, her knowing glances, and her silence when I was attacked told me everything I needed to know. The emotional toll was brutal. Friends I thought I could count on started distancing themselves. A few even asked me directly if the rumors were true. Each time I'd swear they weren't, but I could see hesitation in their eyes, like they weren't sure who to believe. For the first time in my life, I questioned myself. Was I really as hardworking, kind, and genuine as I thought, or was I just fooling myself? That's the cruelest part about betrayal. It doesn't just damage how others see you, it chips away at how you see yourself. I stopped posting online, afraid of being mocked. I spoke less at family gatherings, worried my words would be twisted again. I withdrew into myself, shrinking smaller and smaller while my sister seemed to shine brighter. She loved the attention. Every time someone laughed at one of her comments, she wore a satisfied smile, like she had won. To her, my silence was proof of her dominance. She acted like the queen of the family, the one in control of the narrative. And the more I crumbled, the more powerful she became. But even then, a small voice inside me whispered, "This isn't over." I thought I had already endured the worst of my sister's schemes. The whispers, the twisted stories, the humiliating digs, surely that was as bad as it could get. But I was wrong. She wasn't finished with me. She wanted something bigger, something that would crush me completely. It happened on a Friday night, during a friend's birthday party. Everyone from our social circle was there, classmates, neighbors, even a few teachers who had been invited. I was nervous but excited. I thought maybe this was a chance to rebuild my reputation, to prove I wasn't the sad, pathetic version of myself that my sister had painted. For the first hour, everything seemed fine. I laughed, I talked, I almost felt like myself again. But then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed with a notification. My heart froze when I saw what it was, a screenshot circulating in the party group chat. It looked like a string of text messages from me, ugly, cruel words about the very people standing around me. Messages calling my friends losers, mocking a girl for her weight, laughing about cheating on exams. I hadn't written a single word of it. But the screenshots were convincing. My name, my profile picture, everything. It was a perfect forgery, and I didn't need to wonder who had created it. I could feel my sister's gaze across the room, watching me with that satisfied half-smile. The reaction was immediate. Conversations died. People stared. One girl whispered, "Wow, I thought she was different." Another shook her head in disgust. My cheeks burned hot as tears stung my eyes. I tried to defend myself, fumbling with my words, insisting it wasn't real. But the damage was done. Screenshots spread faster than truth ever could. Even my family wasn't immune. That night when we got home, my parents demanded answers. "Why would you write those things?" my mom asked, her voice filled with disappointment. I swore I hadn't, begged them to believe me, but my sister stood in the corner with her arms folded, silent, her expression perfectly neutral. She didn't need to say a word. Her silence said everything. That was the lowest point of my life. I cried until my eyes swelled shut. I stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped caring. I felt like my identity had been ripped away and replaced with a lie I couldn't fight. Alone in my room, I wondered if maybe my sister had won, if maybe I should just give up and let her own the spotlight she craved so desperately. But then, something inside me shifted. Beneath all the pain and humiliation, a fire flickered. I realized that the only reason she had gone this far was because I still posed a threat to her. If I were truly weak and irrelevant, she wouldn't bother. Her obsession with destroying me was proof that I mattered more than she wanted to admit. So that night, through swollen eyes and clenched fists, I made a silent promise to myself. If she wants war, she'll get war. The morning after the scandal, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. My eyes were red, my hair tangled, my face drained of all confidence. But beneath that broken reflection, there was something new, resolve. I wasn't going to let my sister write the story of my life. If she wanted a war of lies, I was ready to fight back with the one weapon she could never beat: the truth. I started quietly. At first, I went through my phone, combing through months of messages. I found little things, screenshots of conversations where she mocked me, voice notes where she slipped insults under her breath, old texts where she admitted to lying about me just to get attention. None of it was explosive on its own, but together it was a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to her. Next, I turned to people who had witnessed her behavior. A close friend who'd heard her brag about ruining my image. a classmate who once caught her editing fake screenshots, even a cousin who remembered her laughing about how gullible our parents were. One by one, they agreed to back me up, some even offering written statements and recordings. They were tired of her games, too. They just hadn't wanted to get involved. Until now. The more evidence I collected, the clearer the picture became. She wasn't just a jealous sister making petty comments. She was a calculated manipulator. And the world needed to see it. But I knew I couldn't act out of pure anger. If I lashed out recklessly, she'd spin it as me being dramatic or crazy, so I planned it carefully, step by step. I organized everything, the screenshots, the testimonies, the audio clips. I even created a timeline that showed how every rumor about me conveniently lined up with her actions. Once I had enough, I faced the hardest decision: how to share it. Confronting her privately would do nothing. She'd deny it and twist it back on me. Telling my parents alone wasn't enough. They had already doubted me once. No, I needed to go bigger. I needed to expose her in a way she couldn't escape, in a way everyone would see. That's when the idea struck me. I'd make a video, not a rant, not a screaming match, but a calm, detailed breakdown of the truth. I'd show the receipts one after another so that no one could claim I was making it up. I'd tell my story, what she did, how it affected me, and why I refused to stay silent any longer. It terrified me. Putting myself out there like that meant risking more ridicule, more attacks, but it also meant taking control of the narrative. For once, people wouldn't just hear her version, they'd hear mine. And so, late one night, I set up my phone, hit record, and spoke my truth into the camera. I didn't know it then, but that decision would change everything. The video wasn't perfect. My voice cracked in places, and my hands trembled as I held up screenshots to the camera. But it was real, raw, honest. I walked through everything: the rumors, the fake screenshots, the humiliation at the party, the way my sister had chipped away at me for years. And then I showed the receipts, every text, every recording, every piece of proof that revealed her lies. When I hit upload, I felt sick to my stomach. My finger hovered over the delete button for a full minute. What if no one believed me? What if it only made things worse? But then the first comment appeared. Wow, I believe you. This is heartbreaking but so brave to share. Then another. The evidence is undeniable. Your sister sounds toxic. Stay strong. Within an hour, the video had 5,000 views. By the end of the night, it had crossed 100,000. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Likes, shares, supportive messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Strangers flooded the comments, tagging friends and saying, "You need to watch this." By the next morning, it hit 1 million. That number didn't even feel real. 1 million people had heard my side of the story. 1 million people had seen the truth I'd been silenced from telling for so long. And the comments weren't just sympathy. They were outrage. Her sister is pure evil. I can't believe your family didn't see it before. Stay strong, Queen. Screenshots don't lie. She played herself. People rallied behind me, not just locally, but across the internet. Some shared their own sibling horror stories. Others praised me for being courageous enough to speak up. For the first time, I felt seen, not as the broken, humiliated version of myself, but as someone strong, someone who fought back. And my sister, she couldn't hide anymore. Friends who once laughed at her jokes now confronted her, demanding answers. Her social media, once full of attention and admiration, turned into a battlefield of angry comments. Some of her closest allies distanced themselves, embarrassed they had ever sided with her. Teachers who had seen the video pulled me aside, whispering that they now understood the truth. Even relatives began calling, apologizing for ever doubting me. The look on my sister's face when she realized the tide had turned was something I'll never forget. The smug grin, the confidence, the untouchable aura, it all shattered. Suddenly, she wasn't the powerful one. She was the liar, the manipulator, the villain of the story. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking in the shadows. She was. It didn't erase the pain she caused, but watching her facade crumble was the sweetest justice I could have imagined. She had tried to destroy me with lies, but in the end, the truth destroyed her. The morning after the video went viral, the atmosphere in my house was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. My parents sat at the breakfast table in silence, my mom clutching her coffee mug like it was the only thing grounding her. My dad's phone kept buzzing with notifications, calls from relatives, messages from family friends, all of them asking if the video was true. I walked in cautiously, expecting more disappointment, more questions. But instead, my mom's eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" she whispered. My dad cleared his throat, guilt heavy in his voice as he admitted, "We should have seen it. We should have believed you." For once, they weren't looking at me with suspicion. They were looking at me with remorse. The truth had forced its way into the light, and there was no denying it anymore. My sister sat across from me, stone-faced, her usual confidence gone. She tried to act unfazed, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened, but her trembling hands betrayed her. The world saw her now, not the mask she wore, but the manipulator behind it. At school, the shift was just as dramatic. People who once whispered behind my back now stopped me in the hallway to apologize. Teachers treated me with a newfound respect, and classmates who had distanced themselves began reaching out again. It was strange, almost surreal to feel the tide turn so completely. For so long, I had been defined by my sister's lies. Now, I was finally being defined by my own truth. And the opportunities that came with it? Unexpected but life-changing. A local paper wrote an article about the power of speaking up, featuring my story. A few online creators reached out, wanting to collaborate, saying my bravery had inspired them. For the first time, my dream of building a platform, of being respected for my voice, didn't feel so far away. Meanwhile, my sister's jealousy had boomeranged back onto her. Friends who once idolized her now avoided her. She was excluded from group chats, ignored at gatherings, and whispered about in the same way she once whispered about me. Watching her sit alone at lunch, scrolling aimlessly, was a strange sight. I didn't feel joy in her downfall, just a quiet sense of balance. She had spent years trying to isolate me, and now she was the one left in the shadows. In the weeks that followed, I thought a lot about everything that happened. The pain, the humiliation, the nights I cried myself to sleep, they were real and they hurt. But so was the strength I found in myself. I realized that truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it feels like it will never win. But when it finally does, it's unstoppable. My sister tried to ruin me. She tried to bury me under lies, to strip me of my reputation, my confidence, my identity. But in the end, all she did was give me the chance to rise higher than I ever thought I could. Because the truth always wins, even if it comes late.